Madagascar is right on the doorstep of Europe. You go straight north to Europe. We can go across to Australia or across to Asia, or we can go through the canals and over to the US. So it's independent at the moment. It's got the ability to service any market, and we will be creating a high quality carbonate product.
Hello, you're watching Proactive. I'm joined by Harena Resources Managing Director, Joe Belladonna. Joe, very good to meet you. For viewers not familiar with the company, tell us a little bit about Harena Resources and what you do.
Yeah, sure. Harena Resources is a rare earth development company, effectively. We have a very advanced project, so it's not an exploration company as such. We have a large-scale resource in Madagascar with the full suite of rare earth elements, especially the magnet metals, the neodymiums, the praseodymiums, dysprosiums and terbiums. So the company itself has a large-scale resource. It's JORC-compliant, and we're looking to develop that as quickly as we can.
Well, let's chat about that in just a moment. First of all, perhaps give us your thoughts maybe on the macro space for rare earths at the moment. So pretty topical. China's restricting exports, and that must be good for other potential exporters.
Yeah, definitely. It's certainly put a spotlight on the rare earth market in general, especially those magnet metals that we spoke about before, because that's what's really been targeted by the export restrictions out of the Chinese market at the moment. Specifically, terbium and dysprosium have been targeted in those restrictions, and they're the elements that are really key to the permanent magnet market. They're what give magnets their ability to operate at high heat. So, specifically targeting in on these specific elements is really quite interesting. But I think other than it putting a spotlight on them at the moment, it does, I guess, show people that governments around the world are actually now quite concerned about how they're going to source their magnet metals going into things like defensive applications and appliances, whether that's advanced robotics such as humanoid robotics and AI-enabled robotics and the likes. These things are full of permanent magnets, and these permanent magnets are full of those rare earth elements. So while it's great that we've got this spotlight shone on rare earths at this present time, I think when we look at that overall macro level and step back, the demand drivers are going to be very strong as we head forward from all of those sort of emerging industries that we're seeing.
So Joe, tell us how your project, that's the Ampasindava Project in Madagascar, will be positioned to meet those demand drivers.
Yeah, definitely. The great thing about Ampasindava is that it's located in Madagascar, so it's not necessarily a US project or a China project or a European or Asian project as such. So it is actually an independent source of rare earth elements that could go into any of those jurisdictions and centrally located globally. Madagascar is right on the doorstep of Europe. You go straight north to Europe. We can go across to Australia or across to Asia, or we can go through the canals and over to the US. So it's independent at the moment. It's got the ability to service any market, and we will be creating a high quality carbonate product is the plan to be created out of the project. So it's got all of the right elements to feed the markets that are chasing them, centrally located and currently uncontracted from a binding nature. But I will note we do have a non-binding term sheet with a company called United Rare Earths out of the US. So we have already got interest in offtake out of the US, but that only covers 50% of the product at the moment. There's another 50% available, and obviously, as I said, it is non-binding at the moment, so there is opportunities there to move that forward as well.
In fact, I mean, it's one of the largest iconic ionic clay rare earth deposits outside of China, and your 2023 mineral resource estimate puts it with a life of mine of over 100 years, Joe, so a pretty massive deposit.
Yeah, it's very, very big. Like you said, it's a multi-generational deposit. It'll certainly outlive me if it gets into production at the maximum rate of sort of 5 million tonnes leaching per year. That's a 100-year mine life, like you said. But I think the most important thing around the deposit is that it is an ionic clay deposit. So there's multitudes of deposits around the world, whether they're hard rock clays, ionic clays. But the beauty of the ionic clay style of deposit is that it's very easily processed via simple heat bleaching or tank leaching using salt water and ammonium sulfate as the agent to actually break that ionic bond and release the elements into solution. So it's got very strong recoveries. from the products. So when we're talking about ionic clays, we're seeing recoveries in the high 80s for the dysprosium and the neodymium and the praseodymium, and in the 70s and high 70s for dysprosium and terbium. So being an ionic clay deposit, being large scale, gives it a long mine life. Cheap processing should be seen out of the ionic clay styles of deposits, and we're right on the coastal locations. So our major reagent is seawater, so that's right on our doorstep, and it gives us the ability, like I said, to ship anywhere in the world from there. So it's a really attractive project.
You're out with an update just a few weeks ago on the project, which looked pretty positive. Take us through the news flow that investors should be looking out for going forward.
Yeah, certainly. One of the things we're really working, in priority with at the moment is the conversion of our exploration mining license. It's currently a transitional license between exploration and mining, or exploitation license. So to do that, we're working on a pre-feasibility study to be able to take that to the government and say, this is the project and we'd like our mining license converted. So we're working away on that as quickly as we can. So that's a piece of news flow that we have coming. But just last week, we did sort of highlight some of those metallurgy recoveries that I was talking about. And really, it's the fact that there's been 20 years worth of work and US $20 million worth of expenditure across this tenement to get us to that JORC resource. So the geology, the metallurgy, those long run work streams have been completed, and Ampasindava is ready now to complete that study and move forward quickly as we can into development.
Joe, I hope you'll keep us updated on any progress with that. Thank you very much for speaking with us today.
Thanks for having me along, Stephen.
That's Joe Belladonna, Managing Director of Harena Resources.